Okay, my name is David Groen. This is my second presentation for my IT ethics class. In this presentation, I'll be going over Amazon.com and the Marketplace Fairness Act and why Amazon supports an online sales tax. So first of all, what is a Marketplace Fairness Act? The Marketplace Fairness Act, or MFA, grants states the authority to compel online and catalog retailers, remote sellers in other words, no matter where they are located, to collect sales tax at the time of a transaction, exactly like local retailers are already required to do. However, there is one catch. States are only granted this authority after they have simplified their sales tax laws. Now, in the Act, they're giving two options. Option one, adopt the simplification measures in the Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement, developed by 44 states and over 85 businesses. Option two, comply with the 5 simplification mandates listed in the bill. Now, what's interesting is that the SSUTA, even though it has been developed by 44 states, doesn't mean that the states themselves that participated will actually put these measures in place. So that's why there's the option 2 that was put in, because many states, as you know, one political party changes power, as one gains power of the state, they don't like the idea of what the previous political party did. So that's the reason why they want this second option. Now, as citizens of each state that has a sales tax, what are we technically required to do already? So if you live in a state that charges sales tax, which, by the way, Oregon, Montana, New Hampshire, Delaware, and Alaska does not have a sales tax, surprisingly enough. I did not know that. And buy something from an online store that does not charge you sales tax, then you are supposed to calculate the sales tax yourself and add it onto your annual state tax bill. Not surprisingly, almost no one actually does this. So what brought this all about? As online retailing has grown, sales tax has been a growing issue for state governments, which say billions of dollars a year in sales taxes are going unpaid. Brick and mortar stores don't like it either because it gives online retailers an advantage. And Amazon would love to eliminate online small business competition because that's their main competitor right now. Now, eBay is fighting the bill. eBay just recently sent out tens of millions of emails to active U.S. sellers asking them to fight the bill. I ended up getting one of these emails myself. The bill currently exempts businesses that have less than $1 million a year in sales. Now, eBay wants the exemption to go up to $10 million a year. Now, one thing to keep in mind, though, is that a lot of people, they hear the idea of $1 million a year in sales and think, oh my, the owners of the company must be wealthy, must be rich. Well, not necessarily so. Just because you do $1 million in sales does not mean that you're doing $1 million in profit. You could do $1 million in sales and your profit margin is $100,000, which would be enough for, maybe you and your spouse. And I wouldn't really consider $100,000 really be enough to pay for a husband-wife team and kids. Not in today's economy. So when you see this $1 million a year in sales, don't let it fool you that there's this huge profit margin. For some businesses, especially when they're having to do business based upon volume, rather than individual sales, well, they've probably got a very, very small markup in whatever product that they're selling. So again, that leads to a smaller profit margin. And any tax requirement to actually start collecting taxes, it just makes it that much more difficult for that business, because now that business doesn't have to not only do the taxes for their individual state, but all 50 states. So a lot of small businesses, when their profit margin is already small, they're not going to be willing to go through that, and many of them will very likely just shut their doors. They'll actually shut the business down rather than deal with that. So now, why is Amazon supporting the bill? Well, according to Amazon's financial records, in 2009, Amazon averaged about $70 million a day in sales. That's 70 times the current $1 million exemption for small business. Now, remember, it's $70 million a day in sales versus $1 million a year. That's 7 times what eBay wants for small business exemption. So, needless to say, Amazon can afford to hire the team of accountants and lawyers and whatever else professionals needed to make sure that the taxes are paid to each state correctly. Now, this wasn't always so for Amazon. A few years back, about 5 years ago, Amazon was waging a scorched earth campaign against states that attempted to collect sales taxes from internet businesses. And for an example, when various states passed laws claiming that affiliate links represented a physical nexus in those states that would allow them to collect taxes, Amazon said that they were closing down associates who were residents of those states. So if I had a website and I said, okay, I want to be an Amazon affiliate, basically you're just driving traffic towards their website. Now all of a sudden, hey, I'm a physical nexus and I represent Amazon, so therefore Amazon has to pay state sales tax or state sales taxes. Well, Amazon would shut down my affiliate, and now I'm not getting any money for driving business towards them. Now, both the states and Amazon clearly believed that freedom from sales tax constituted a major competitive advantage for Amazon. A few years later, they're all sunshine and smiles when it comes to taxing the internet. So it's interesting just to have a few short, 4 or 5 year period, Amazon did a complete 180. Now, as a matter of fact, Amazon is actually lobbying for the internet sales tax. Now, why the shift? Regardless of its histories, Amazon's competitive advantage is no longer derives from its tax-free status. Amazon is a cost leader on most products even before you add in sales tax. And they're a marketplace killer because their giant warehouses are vastly more efficient than even a big box store. They require fewer staff per customer. They don't have to decorate nicely. They can be located in the middle of nowhere instead of prime shopping mall real estate. And of course, they typically pay much less to employees in rural locations or these middle of nowhere locations than in more populous urban areas. So now their overhead as far as payroll is actually even lower. In addition to having less employees. Now, Amazon doesn't need to be sales tax free to compete with brick and mortar resellers. It just needs volumes, which it already has. And convenience, this is where it lags slightly behind the big boxes. If we want something, we got to have it that day. Well, we just drive down the road. We just go to Walmart, Target, or Kmart, or whatever big box store, and pick up what we were wanting to get that same day. Well, Amazon wants that. They want to be able to deliver same day, type performance. So the solution is to open more warehouses closer to the customers. Next day and same day delivery will increasingly become the norm, especially in urban areas. Now, for those of you who probably don't already know, Amazon has what is known as the Amazon Prime, which gives you free 2-day shipping on any product that is a Prime product from their website. And as a matter of fact, if you're a student, I'll go ahead and throw this out. I'm not a big fan of Amazon, but I'll go ahead and throw this out because I'm always about saving money where I can. If you're a student and you haven't already done so, you can go to Amazon.com and sign up for Amazon Prime for free for 6 months. You just got to provide a student email. But anyways, as I said, next day and same day delivery will increasingly become the norm, especially in urban areas. But to pull more business from brick and the mortar stores, Amazon warehouses will become a little bit more like the big box stores, nearer and more numerous. So obviously those warehouses indisputably are a physical nexus, a taxable physical nexus. And in other words, getting closer to the customer means paying sales tax in more states. So if you have to pay taxes anyways, shouldn't everyone else have to as well? Well, an argument that Amazon saw as unreasonable 5 years ago when it came from brick and mortar stores comes to seem eminently sensible when you're fighting off competition from smaller shops, from smaller businesses. So Amazon has reportedly poured millions of dollars into lobbying for this bill. And of course, it's very little wonder that it has passed the Senate, and smaller retailers don't have nearly the lobbying muscle, and they certainly don't have the chorus of governors urging their senators to help the state government out in these troubling fiscal times. So, how much will this tax raise? Well, supporters of the bill claim that it will raise about $23 billion a year in taxes. Now, opponents of the bill say it's more like $3 billion, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to get much detail as to how they were coming up with these numbers. Now, but what they did say is even with the higher number, it will only be about 0.1% of total state and local spending for 2012. So again, the supporters of the bill claim they'll raise about $23 billion a year. This is actually not a per state tax revenue. This is actually for all 45 states that actually have a sales tax. This is how much more it would actually raise for them. So when you break it down, it's a couple $100 million at best for $400 or $500 million extra for each state. And when you really boil it down, that's not really a whole lot of money. Not for a state, anyways. And what does this tell us about the future of the marketplace? Well, obviously the answer is that it's going to be big for Amazon and not for the eBay sellers, not for the small business who are looking to sell, like a special product or just anything right on eBay. Now, the internet tax will also be the final chopping block to Amazon's biggest competitors, small business. An internet sales tax isn't going to level the playing field between Amazon and local retailers either. As a matter of fact, it's just going to move Amazon closer to the end zone, because a lot of your local retailers are also selling on the internet. So for those that are surviving storefronts who sell on the internet, well, they're surviving because they're selling on the internet. When you increase the requirements that now they have to follow out-of-state tax laws for 44 other states, you can see where it kind of makes business sense for them to actually get out of the internet sales. So there is a lot of I would say there's a lot of ethics in this, because here it is, you got a powerhouse, you got Amazon, a powerhouse out there who is essentially doing what Walmart did several years ago. And it was like, just from the low cost and low prices. And now, of course, I'm sure that Amazon's probably, taking a chunk out of Walmart's sales too. And there's a lot of people say, hey, this is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, or, Walmart's getting their fixed dessert. But the thing is, though, is that this is something that, you really just cannot let just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You can't be sitting here writing taxes that favor one group of people and disservice the other, especially in this economy. So my response to these governors and to these senators and representatives is that first and foremost, you need to look at the small business. Because if you eliminate or damage small business, well, then these small businesses are usually, they do make up the largest proportion of employers in the United States. It's not these big box stores that make up, or even the big corporations that make up the vast majority of employment. It's actually the small businesses. The small businesses actually employ more people in the United States than these large corporations. So if you go in there and you actually start eliminating or start making it harder for these small businesses to do business, you're going to have more people out of work, which means there's going to be more people on welfare, more people on social services, needs and things like that, which means we're going to end up having to pay higher taxes. We're going to end up taxing the big corporations, and of course, when that happens, big corporations are going to end up charging more, and it's just a vicious cycle. So it's just something that for everybody to sit down and really think about. But if you have any questions or comments, post them, below on YouTube, or through my classmates. They can post it on our forum. So like I said, if you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks.